Good afternoon. My name is Paul DiGiacomo, President of the Detectives Endowment Association, and we're here today to call for justice. The loss of a child, a loss of a sister, a brother, there is no greater pain. And we're here today to ask for justice in the case of Megan McDonald. With us here today, I'd like to welcome Megan's mom, who's upstairs, Betty Jo McDonald, Karen and James Whalen, Megan's sister and her husband, James. Now, on March 14th, 2003, the lifeless, savagely beaten body of a young woman was found in a field off Browser Road in the town of Wallkill in Orange County, New York. The victim was Megan McDonald, the 20-year-old daughter of Detective Second Grade Dennis McDonald, who served with the NYPD for 20 years. He retired from the NYPD in the year 2000 and passed away in 2002. Still reeling from the loss of their father, Megan's siblings and her mother were heartbroken by this senseless death. Megan's homicide was caused by repeated blunt force trauma. She had been murdered in her car, a 1991 white Mercury Sable, which was located 2 days later in a parking lot of Kensington Manor apartment complex in Middletown, New York. After Megan was killed, her body was deposited on a deserted dirt path where it was later discovered. The New York State Troopers, investigators who handled this case for all these years, were relentless in their pursuit of justice for Megan. One of the reasons it took 20 years to bring this case to the point it is now was that the current district attorney, David Hoovler, was once the defense attorney who represented one of the perpetrators in this homicide. In 2022, the DEA created a poster that was distributed up in Orange County to try and entice more witnesses to come forward to help resolve this case and to make an arrest. The New York State Police announced in April that they had finally gathered enough evidence to arrest the perpetrator in Megan's killing. Edward Holley, now 42, is charged with murder in the second degree. Megan McDonald always deserved justice, and she finally got it. Holley was already incarcerated on an unrelated drug crime in the Orange County Correctional Facility. The DEA is now calling on the FBI, the Attorney General, to open an investigation into the District Attorney, David Hoovler, to find out why he stood in the way of arresting Holley to begin with. And he stood in the way of bringing justice for that beautiful young girl, Megan McDonald. Now, I've been a detective for over 40 years, and there's something that we go by, and that's gut instinct a lot. And this case smells. There were things done that were unethical, things done that were wrong, things done that should be investigated by the FBI and the Attorney General to bring to light the corruption in that office in regards to this homicide case. Now, with that being said, I'm going to turn the mic over to Megan's sister.
I'm Karen Whalen, Megan's sister. This is my husband, James Whalen. And we are just so emotional about standing here with Paul DiGiacomo and the DEA and how they have been by our side with everything that we've needed with my dad not being here. And they have just been our rock to stand with, and just to be here is everything. We are here as Megan's family now, joining the DEA and Paul to call for an investigation into David Hoovler and his actions. Only after an arrest was made and after we retained an attorney, John Beatty, did David Hoovler call a meeting where he announced his recusal. At this meeting, he brought in 7 of his staff members. We found him to be untruthful and evasive in his responses to us. In this meeting, his story continued to change. We asked him repeatedly for clarification. We asked him repeatedly for answers. And we still can't understand how David Hoovler could act as a defense attorney for someone involved in my sister's case and turn around and be the district attorney. We still don't have those answers, which is why we're standing here today asking for someone to hold him accountable and get those answers for us. During that meeting, he stated that he was waiting for an arrest, but he issued a press release 5 days previous on the day of the arrest, stating that his office will continue to prioritize the investigation and prosecution of Megan McDonald. Every time we ask him a question, we just can't get the right answer, or an answer, it changes. He had, like I said, 7 staff members there. There were people sitting by his side that were helping him answer questions from his past. He had Chris Borick. He had former Judge Stuart Rosenwasser, who owned the firm that he worked at when he was acting as a defense attorney. He had Leah Canton and Rich Moran. We were a family that went in after an arrest looking for help and looking for answers, what was to come next for justice. And he had all those people there. And thank God we had our lawyer with us. This is nothing any crime victim's family should ever have to face. We are standing here to make sure this doesn't happen anymore. We are a group, crime victims' families, that no one wants to join. No one wants to be part of our group. I take it very seriously to help others that are in our situation, just like they've helped me. And I can't stand for no answers, and I can't stand to let this happen again. We are getting justice for our sweet girl, Megan. We know Ed Holly is finally in jail. It took our family 9 months to see that happen after an arrest, something no family should wait that long for, and it was because David Hoovler refused to bring it to the grand jury. We are looking for answers, and we thank everybody standing with us for helping us to get those answers.
The DEA stands by this family. We don't forget our detectives, whether they're active, whether they're retired, whether they're with us or they have passed. We're always there for their families. With that being said, I'm going to turn it over to the family attorney now, Jack Beattie.
Good afternoon. I want to thank you all for being here, and obviously thank Paul DiGiacomo and the board of the DEA who has supported this family from the very beginning. And Karen and James and I did attend a meeting with David Hoovler. I sat across from David Hoovler and I told him in no uncertain terms that my office would leave no stone unturned to discover why and what and when he did in this case. Clearly, he was not truthful at the meeting. He's not been truthful and forthcoming to date. And I echo the DEA sentiment that this case needs some investigative oversight. If the governor's office or the attorney general or the FBI would come to our aid in trying to get answers in this case, both for this family who's been so injured, but also for the taxpayers of Orange County. And this elected official had an oath when he took office. He recused himself on many other cases. I've received that information through the Freedom of Information Act. The question is, why didn't he recuse himself in this case? Before becoming a lawyer, I had a career in law enforcement. No police officer, no prosecutor can say with a straight face that you can wear 2 hats, especially in a homicide case. That is a preposterous supposition. I want to thank the DEA again for being with us today. We ask for any oversight that can be given in this case, and we will not stop. The last thing I'd like to make clear is that The evidence against Edward Holley will be laid bare in a court of law. What happened with David Hoovler and his actions or inactions in this case have no bearing on the evidence that will be set forth by the special prosecutors. And this family and I and the DEA have the utmost confidence in both special prosecutors and also in the state police investigators who worked tirelessly over a very long period of time to bring evidence that warranted an indictment for Edward Holley. We understand and appreciate and desire that Mr. Holley receive a fair and impartial trial, but we earnestly believe that when the evidence is laid bare, that the public will understand what Edward Holley's involvement in Megan McDonald's murder was. Thank you.
Okay, I'll now turn the microphone over to the DEA attorney, Jim Michelle, to say a couple of words. You good? Okay.
James would like to say a few.
Oh, James, you say for a word, the brother-in-law of Megan?
One thing I want to stress, and again, thank you to Paul DiGiacomo and DEA for their support here. We join the DEA's call in an investigation of District Attorney David Hoovler, and our opinion is based solely on the contents of our meeting with DA Hoovler and the individuals that he brought to that meeting. One thing that needs to be remembered at that meeting that was called suddenly, it was myself, my wife Karen, and attorney John Beatty. DA Hoovler, unbeknownst to us, brought so many people to that meeting that it could not be held in his office as originally planned, but needed to be moved to the grand jury room. The very grand jury that DA Hoovler refused to convene is where he surprised us with the announcement that he was going to recuse himself and constantly shifted his story. Again, we thank DEA Paul DiGiacomo and join in their call for a full and independent investigation, whether it be the FBI, the Attorney General's office, of DA David Hoovler. Thank you.
Any questions? Yes, sir.
Can you give us a brief timeline of interactions with Hoovler and the case?
Yeah.
So during the pendency of the investigation, the family was given little to no information by David Hoovler of the investigation, the case status. The family had the opportunity to speak at a victim's vigil in which they were, in essence, ignored by Mr. Hoovler, where he affirmatively went out of his way not to speak to them. And it was not until after I was retained and the state police garnered enough investigative evidence that they themselves thought there was probable cause to arrest Edward Holley. And then, of course, the special prosecutors were rightfully and very delayed, but they were appointed, and they went over all of the evidence, 20 years worth, and presented that evidence to a grand jury, at least just a small portion of that evidence. And a jury of Mr. Holley's peers felt that that evidence warranted his indictment for murder in the second degree.
Any other questions from anyone? Yes, sir.
And I'm just wondering if there's any nice words you want to say about your sister or what you want people to know about.
Thank you.
That's an easy one.
My sister is wonderful. The whole point of this for us, for our family, our entire goal is to get my sister back, is to stop talking about how she died and not remember her that way, but remember all the love and her smile and her laugh and everything that she brought to our family, and talk about that again. And at the end of this, that is our goal, is to never talk about this again and just move forward with our happy, warm memories of her.
Any other questions from anyone? No? Listen, I just want to say on behalf of the DEA, on behalf of the family, I know it was late notice, and I greatly appreciate the press for coming here today. It really is greatly appreciated, and thank you very, very much. Have a good day.